pass through that bridge. Elders who have struggled, breathing, asthmatic, they have to pass through that bridge.
Pollution due to decades of environmental racism and disinvestment. I'm the Senior Transportation Planner for the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance. NEJA is a nonprofit citywide membership network linking grassroots organizations from low-income communities of color in their struggle for environmental justice. Alongside my colleagues from Uprose and El Puente, our allies from communities in Brooklyn and in Queens, and our elected leaders, we are here today to announce the launch of the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway Environmental Justice Coalition. Almost a century ago, when this structure was built, it severed cultural, familial, and community ties in its design, planning, and implementation. While the BQE is an important transportation artery, we must acknowledge the harm it has inflicted on these communities and still continues to do so today. For decades, communities along the BQE have endured traffic congestion, air pollution, and unsafe walking conditions. Approximately 130,000 vehicles use the BQE every day, and 13,000 of those are trucks. Many of these vehicles are traveling through the neighborhoods, leaving behind toxic fumes that lead to higher asthma rates and other cardiovascular diseases. Many of these same communities have suffered from long-term exposure to toxic pollution due to decades of environmental racism and disinvestment. So we must challenge the autocentric planning of previous and current planners. We need a comprehensive corridor planning that centers environmental justice. We need a plan that envisions a future that promotes safer streets, cleaner air, and helps us meet our climate mandates. And more importantly, we need the city and state to come together to listen to residents and implement community solutions. Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul need to fund our ideas and not ideas that widen highways and allow for more cars. Thanks. So I can keep going on, but we have a slate of speakers here today to talk about why we need a just way and not the highway. That's right. And what they envision for the future of the BQE and their neighborhoods and our city. First, I'd love to bring up a champion of Brooklyn and our city. Who's been fighting for better air quality here in Brooklyn and for the entire city. Our Borough President, Antonio Reynoso.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What a beautiful day. And I say what a beautiful day not because of what you see behind you there, but what you see behind you here. And I think this is a very important moment in our time. These communities that have been burdened with having to see this traffic and these cars and these trucks and this pollution and this harm run through it have been for a long time saying that we can do better. We've been saying that we know better. We've been saying that we know how to plan better than Robert Moses for a long time.
Yes, we can.
But for too long, these communities have been ignored. For too long, these communities have been told that you don't know any better. For too long, these communities have told that you will continue to suffer asthma rates higher than anywhere else in the city of New York if you're along this corridor. And only recently, through the President Biden's initiatives for infrastructure and greening our city, have we been able to see some money finally come down so that we can affect meaningful change in the lives of people along the corridor. And we're doing this specifically because when that money comes down, we don't want outside interests saying or telling us what to do. We don't want corporations or conglomerations or groups that have never been along the corridor of the BQE to come into our communities and tell us what they think is right. We know what is right. We've been talking about it for decades. We've been fighting about it for years. So what this coalition is doing is that this coalition will be front and center and will lead the way for any funding, any organizing, any planning that happens along the corridor must run through the coalition. I am just a member of the coalition, not as Borough President Antonio Reynoso, but as Antonio Reynoso, the kid that grew up in the South Side, whose community got split in half, who now calls the South, there's the South Side and there's the other side. And my community got split and the BQE became an area where gangs used to split territories. People were displaced from their homes. We didn't get an opportunity to tell the city or Robert Moses exactly what they should be doing and how they should be protecting our communities. None of that happened. And I come as somebody that experienced that on the ground. And now I'm so grateful and so happy that we put this coalition together to start fighting for the future of our communities, built by our communities, organized by our communities, planned for our communities. So I'll leave you with the words of the great prophet, the notorious B.I.G. that said, "Spread love is the Brooklyn way," and that is exactly what we're doing here today. Congratulations, Brooklyn.
Thank you so much, Mr. Borough President. And now I'd like to bring up Tavina from Red Hook Initiative to talk about how Red Hook has been split in half because of the BQE. Tavina, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tavina Willis, Community Organizing Manager at Red Hook Initiative. Thank you all for coming out to help us celebrate the launch of this important coalition about environmental justice and how it impacts our communities. And I'm going to introduce my colleague and Red Hook resident, Quincy Phillips.
What's that, Quincy?
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I am so happy to be here for this very important cause. I just first want to give a special shout out to Maria. Where's she at? Woo! Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity. Special shout out to Catherine and the Red Hook Initiative. I've been working here for about 10 years, and I really think that this project is very important. We are affected constantly by the BQE. Kids who have to travel to school and from school have to pass through that bridge. Elders who has trouble breathing, asthmatic, they have to pass through that bridge. We need change. We need change, and we need it now.
That's right.
When the BQE was first built in 1930s by Robert Moses, he only had his best interests at heart.
That's right.
When I think of him, I think of a villain in a superhero movie. Maybe like the Joker and the Batman, you know? He's not a good person. Last spring, my team and I, we created a story map, and we asked about 400 to 500 Red Hook residents a few questions, and we surveyed them, and we turned that into a story map. We're very proud that we created that story map. We had a lot of input, and a lot of people want changes. We asked them, how did they feel when they were crossing the street to get in and out the community? Some response, they felt scared, they felt anxious, they felt paranoid. We have less than 1 minute to pass by two streets and in the middle under the bridge. We need more than a minute to cross that. There's people who are in wheelchairs. Think about kids, strollers. That we need more time for that.
That's right.
We asked them, how we feel about the corridor. I find it insane. I don't think it's safe at all. At all. We asked the people how, what they want, what kind of changes they want made to the BQE, and we thought that their response was going to be complicated. It really wasn't. They don't want much. You know what we want? We want lights under it so we can see when we're crossing at night. Safer crossing. More time on the side, on the street lamps. We need clean up the area. Under the BQE, I did a speech last spring. We found actual bolts falling from the BQE onto the ground. In addition to all the trash over there, the broken glass. It's terrible. You have to cross the BQE in order to get to Red Hook, right? Everyone who takes the train, we know that. I think that the BQE is a first impression of Red Hook, because you need to pass it in order to get into Red Hook. Red Hook is a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood, community. Think about this. Why our first impressions is so ugly. Let's make changes to the BQE. We need it now. Not now, but right now. The time is now. The time is now. The time is now. The time is now. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Quincy and Tavina, and thank you to the RHI team for all the work you've done. You know, surveying 400, 500 people is a lot of work. And, you know, to really listen to the community members and get their input is super powerful. And we need to make sure our administrations, both at the city and state level, are listening to us in our communities. And speaking of listening to our communities, you know, one of the things that we notice is that a lot of the outreach, community engagement from city DOT has only, you know, really looked at Brooklyn, but we want to make sure that Queens is also involved in this conversation. So I want to bring up Elaine from Queens Climate Project to share some thoughts.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for including us. Queens, it's the Q in the BQE. So I'm happy that y'all remembered that. So thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's so great to see so many of you out here outside of the BQE in Brooklyn. My name is Elaine O'Brien, and I am a co-founder and steering committee member of Queens Climate Project. So I'm based in Jackson Heights, Queens. My colleague Ladorian is based in Astoria, Queens, and we're here representing Queens today. And QCP is a group of Queens neighbors and residents working towards a healthier, carbon-free future for our borough and our city. And we volunteer our time to engage in advocacy, education, climate-related initiatives that promote clean energy and sustainability. And our mission is to advocate for strong and equitable clean energy policies and develop initiatives that increase clean energy with a focus on Queens and frontline communities. So given our focus in Queens-based matters, it is unusual to get an invitation to participate in a coalition that is largely populated by Brooklyn-based groups. But just like our neighbors in Brooklyn, communities in Queens have also been negatively impacted by the BQE, and we stand together to advocate for a better way forward for all of us in all of our boroughs. Yes. So the BQE, it slices through some of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Western Queens. Or neighborhoods like Woodside, Sunnyside. These are heavily populated, densely populated areas. And sometimes this does result in overwhelming pollution, unsafe streets, and in some neighborhoods, the constant noise of car and truck traffic. Despite this, it is my understanding, as was mentioned earlier, that Queens neighborhoods were not included in the conversation about the reconstruction of the BQE. So I do my best to keep up with relevant infrastructure projects. It's something I'm very interested in, but it wasn't until I was contacted by Maria at El Puente that I learned at all of the city's plans. It's you couldn't even find out about, you know, anything that was going on in relevance to Queens when doing any research about it. And this is a mistake. This is an affront to the enduring harm of the BQE and the communities in Queens. We need to be included in this conversation. Spending billions of taxpayer dollars to expand the BQE will inflict more harm and dig us further into car-centric modes of transportation. That's the case in Queens, and I believe that's the case here in Brooklyn. So rather than fixing the myriad of problems plaguing this road, expanding it will simply ensure that the damage the BQE has inflicted on the surrounding areas for more than half a century will continue. Any plan going forward will need to include input from all affected communities. And this is now our chance to imagine and implement safer streets, less pollution, cleaner air, more green space, and healthier neighborhoods in Brooklyn and in Queens. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you all for your hard work and support towards these goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elaine. And yes, we do need to reduce our vehicle miles traveled, and our truck dependency and our auto-centric planning. One person that I want to bring up next is Councilmember Alexa Vilas, who's really been listening to the community and really been a champion of regulating last mile warehouses. Councilmember, please.
I was like, what's up, y'all? Only Antonio cheering? What's up? Hello. Good morning or afternoon, good day. I am Alexa Viles. I am the proud representative of District 38, which includes the beautiful communities of Red Hook, who's strongly represented here, and Sunset Park. And so thank you. I, of course, am always at awe to be with this group of people. Now, the one thing I want to say, and I'm going to keep this relatively short, is that these community members, these organizations, have been fighting environmental justice issues in our communities for decades. They have been ad nauseum talking about this racist infrastructure that has negatively impacted. It was put here regardless to make convenience for people from the suburbs, for wealthier communities. And so our community has been fighting this infrastructure along with many other things that have been placed in our community for decades. So I'm so proud always to stand in solidarity, and we say nothing about us without us. Yes. We have the land use planning experts. We have the environmental experts. We have the experience on the ground of what it is to deal with this infrastructure, whether it's the air or the traffic or any manner of other impacts that we're seeing. We have the expertise here. We don't need technical experts showing us their modalities on their computers from somewhere else. We have that here. So we're here demanding not only immediate action, but also implementing the solutions that we have been calling for decades. So thank you so much to this incredible coalition. Keep grinding. We are gonna be here regardless. So if you're not listening, Governor Hochul, Mayor Adams, and any manner of anyone else, we are not going anywhere. We demand a just way, not a highway. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Council Member. And yes, we need both our governor and our mayor to listen to us. And I want to bring up someone who's been fighting for this for decades and who's been calling for a just way, not the highway, for a very long time. Our Assembly Member, Joanne Simon.
Sometimes I wish I hadn't been doing this for decades, if you know what I'm saying.
Fair.
You still got it.
Fair
I still got it. God, these kids, So let me just say this. I came to start working on the BQE and trying to sink the Gowanus Expressway into a tunnel and open up this area, open up the waterfront, reconnect with Red Hook, which is one of the most just cut off neighborhoods. And so here's the thing about Robert Moses. He did not plan. He didn't care to plan. Nobody cared about that, right? They just built, right? And if you were in the way, too bad. So we are the people who are in the way. And we're saying that can no longer be the case. It is not too bad. You don't like it, it's too bad on you. We need to be at the table. It is not just about input. It is about leadership. This should be community-led. The community does know, and the community can make tough decisions when they have accurate information, and they are brought together, and we can actually work through those difficult issues. This is not an uncomplicated area of the world. There are lots of impacts, and none of us had anything to do with creating those problems, but we are the ones living with them. and we are the ones suffering from them. And it is our communities that are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. It is our kids who need health care and end up staying home from school, and then their parents have to stay home from work. And that depresses the economic vitality of neighborhoods and people's job opportunities. This has far-reaching impacts in so many ways. And so we are here to say, enough already. We need a different way of doing things. We need a just way that will actually bring environmentally just and sustainable solutions and allow us to reimagine this corridor in a way that will work for the people of the city of New York and the state of New York and the people of these communities who are the most impacted. And so the most impacted people should get deference. The most impacted people should be at the table leading. That is my commitment to you. That is what I have been working for, I'm sorry to say, around 3 decades now. And I don't want this to take another 3 decades. I do not want it to be the Joanne Simon Memorial Tunnel, right? I want to be there for the opening, and I want it to be soon. Thank you.
You deserve better.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember. And next, I'd like to bring up Councilmember Ressler, who from day one since he took office has been fighting for this.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled, like genuinely thrilled, to be standing here with all of you today. Because this is what Brooklyn looks like. From North Brooklyn neighbors in Greenpoint to El Puente on the south side, to the Cobble Hill Association and the Brooklyn Heights Association, to Red Hook Initiative, to tenant leaders from Gowanus and Wyckoff. We have groups from Sunset Park to Greenpoint that are standing with us today who have all been harmed for decades by the BQE. And we are coming together, united, to demand a comprehensive vision for the future of the BQE. We are not going to preserve this highway in perpetuity. It has caused too much harm in each of our communities, and we are coming together in our diversity across different neighborhoods with one voice to demand environmental justice, to demand improved air quality, to demand that our communities be reconnected. This is possible, and together, unified, we are going to make it happen. Like Antonio, I grew up half a block from the BQE. And whereas the BQE ran right through the middle of his neighborhood, displacing residents, in my community, Robert Moses, a white, wealthier community in Brooklyn Heights, Robert Moses nicely put the highway around the neighborhood, under the beautiful promenade. This is racist infrastructure. We all know it. And now, Mayor Adams and his team are talking about expanding the number of lanes on the triple cantilever of the BQE. Do you know what that would mean? 6 million additional car and truck trips in our community each and every year. With the climate crisis upon us, that is unconscionable. It is governmental malpractice, what Eric Adams and his team are pursuing to expand car and truck traffic in our communities. We will not stand for it.
That's right.
But we are not here just to talk about fixing the triple cantilever. We are demanding a unified, comprehensive vision for the future of the BQE. And so when Mayor Adams comes to Assemblymember Simon and I and asks for our approval on the triple cantilever project, we have one message for him. It's not just about Brooklyn Heights. It's about the whole BQE corridor. Each and every neighborhood deserves environmental justice, and we are going to fight together to make that happen. Thank you.
Powerful words, Councilmember. And next, I'd like to bring up Danny from El Puente to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in North Brooklyn. Danny?
Hey, Danny!
Hi everyone, buen dia. How's everybody feeling? How are we today? Bueno, I'm only going to be up here for a few minutes, but El Puente es presente. I want to thank everybody who came out here today. For us at El Puente, we've been a human rights community-led organization based in Los Sures and south side of Williamsburg. And at the heart of everything that we do is our community. And I believe that we always let communities speak for themselves. And so I'm only going to be up here to introduce our speaker, but I just wanted to shout out, you know, at the heart of everything is our membership base. We have our bike club here that rode and led the way to come out. Our muralistas led us in the artwork that we're using for today. And I'm going to bring up Raisa Lynn Garden Lucerna, who is a resident, a longtime El Puente member, and a leader in the space who will share a few words. Thank y'all.
Okay, good morning, everybody, or I guess it's almost afternoon. My name is Raisa, and I'm a lifelong resident of Los Sures in the south side of Williamsburg. So, as everybody else has said, the BQE has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. Growing up around El Puente and living a block from the Williamsburg Bridge, cars, traffic, and dirty air were just a normal part of my childhood. I remember some of the first times I realized as a kid that when I travel outside of my neighborhood to places with less cars, the difference in air was drastic. I remember going to parks in my neighborhood where 3 of our major playgrounds are located along the BQE. So, that as we played as kids, we were breathing in toxic air filled with particulate matter, black carbon, and fumes. I also remember all of the asthma. Kids in my elementary school couldn't play at gym and recess unless they had their inhalers with them. But again, this was just a normal part of my childhood. But it shouldn't have been. And these circumstances aren't a coincidence. Los Sures has asthma rates twice that of the citywide average, ranking 3rd out of 59 community districts for asthma cases in New York City. These conditions are a result of the compounded effects of the BQE and all of its pollution and our lack of trees and green open spaces. This lack of greenery makes our neighborhood hotter, which makes our air dirtier, and an endless cycle that will only grow worse with climate change. But it isn't hopeless and we're not giving up. I'm now in my final weeks of the Sustainable Environmental Systems program at Pratt, writing my graduate thesis on the power of community-led planning to achieve just and sustainable change, exactly what we're talking about today. Because this is the future, right? We deserve money to implement projects created by us, not for us, because we know our communities best. Our communities have shovel-ready projects like the BQ Green in Los Sures to cap the underpass trench in the section of the BQE, and to heal the gash to reconnect our community and bring in the green open space we lack. I dream of the day when both sides of Los Sures will have a green place to gather without having to walk to the north side to get it. And what's the best part of today is that we're all gathering here together with the support of our electeds to demand our right to community-developed environmental justice projects to repair the wound that the BQE has left on our communities. This isn't a fight that any of us can take on alone, and we're stronger when we stand together. We have all the ideas, plans, and visions for the future we imagine, and we're actively working towards it within our day-to-day. And it's because we're here to stay in our communities that we're not going to give up. It's too late for me. 2 COVID infections later, and my inhaler has to come with me wherever I go. But it's not too late for the children, the ones growing up now who will be young enough to enjoy this change, or the ones who will be born into a community that has been greened, healed, and reclaimed in their name. Thank you for your attention and energy today, and as always, pa'lante, siempre pa'lante.
Thank you so much, Raisa and the El Puente team. I know we're, over time. So I want to bring up Carlos from Senator Granada's office, who couldn't be here, but Carlos is here to share some words. I know the Senator is working hard on the budget now. So, Carlos.
Thank you, everyone. What an amazing crowd. On behalf of the Senator, thank you so much for all the incredible coalition. What an incredible turnout. Nothing can stop the coming of spring, and nothing can stop the communities from driving their future. The Senator represents 11 of the 19 miles of the BQE. And it has ripped through so many of our communities, from Bay Ridge to Sunset Park and Red Hook and Gowanus and Cobble Hill and Carroll Gardens and Brooklyn Heights. But we want to make sure that the entire corridor has a comprehensive plan, and that's what the Senator has been adding his voice to continuously. This is a legacy of the racism of Robert Moses that has ripped through our communities. This is an environmental justice issue and a racial justice issue. We need to make sure that the communities and not cars are driving the planning for their future. This is called Asthma Alley for a reason, and I have my inhaler here. My asthma has gotten worse, like many, many people that live along and around the corridor, and that is so immoral. We have to make sure that we have safe streets, clean air. green spaces and the ability for people to get throughout their communities into other communities without the danger of the BQE. We are really proud to stand with the BQE and Environmental Justice Plan and all the amazing coalition partners because we really believe that the future should be driven by those affected, by the communities that have been living with this harm for far too long. And we have a once in a lifetime, once in a generation opportunity with the infrastructure plan for the Biden administration and the Reconnecting Communities grant to shape that future, and it should be the communities. So we support you, and I'm glad to be part of this coalition with our colleagues in government and the communities so we can achieve a better future for all. I'm excited for this. Let's get this done. Si se puede.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And next, I'd like to bring up Sebastian from Uprose to talk about why Sunset Park and South Brooklyn need, investment in their community. Sebastian.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sebastian, and I'm with Uprose, Brooklyn's oldest Latino community-based organization located in Sunset Park, just over on the other side of the BQE. Can I make some noise? We're here to call on the city and state administrations to let them know that the BQE requires fundamental transformation rooted in environmental justice. Is that right? Yes! We know that the current planning process for the BQE has been a sham. Working class communities of color like Sunset Park, no proposed beautification in our neighborhoods will hide the fact that this toxic infrastructure divides our communities, that it pollutes our neighbors' lungs, that it does not mitigate or adapt to climate change. What do we think about the BQE planning process currently? Is it good? Is it equitable? No, it's not equitable, that's right. If the city and state administration had it their way, working class communities of color like Sunset Park would continue to be sacrifice zones for another 100 years. What do we think about that? Do we sacrifice zones? No. That's why we are here to call for a comprehensive corridor-wide community planning process rooted in environmental justice. We know that we cannot continue business as usual with orange skies plaguing our summers and a Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act to implement. Is that right? We have to implement it. We have to fight these orange skies. We need a just way, not the highway. Can we say, when I say just way, you say not the highway. A just way. Not the highway. A just way. Not the highway. A just way. Not the highway. We need a planning process that is community-led and corridor-wide. We need a planning process that is comprehensive, meaningfully advances racial justice, and improves public health. And we need to move people and goods by rail, on our waterways, by public transit, and by bike, not polluting cars and trucks. Is that right? I'm glad to be joined by organizations and elected officials who know that we are at a crossroads and we must seize this once-in-a-generation opportunity. The crossroads is between the BQE and racial equity, and the choice cannot be clearer. So we're going to continue building our power, we're going to continue organizing, and we're going to make sure that no community has to live with toxic infrastructure. So again, a just way, not the highway. A just way? Not the highway. A just way? Not the highway. A just way? Not the highway. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. And next, I'd like to call up Laura from Brooklyn Heights Association to talk a little bit more about what's happening in BQE Central. Laura.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so it's actually me and Amy here representing the Atlantic to Sands section of the BQE, otherwise known as BQE Central. So I'll start, and then I'll hand off to Amy from Cobble Hill. My name is Laura Bernbach. I'm here representing the Brooklyn Heights Association. The BHA is beyond thrilled to be here as a partner in the launch of the BQE Environmental Justice Coalition after years of BQE advocacy, because we know, as Councilmember Ressler reminded us, the BQE, the problems of the BQE are so much more than the structural integrity of the triple cantilever. And that's why we're here today with this coalition of groups. You've already heard how destructive, polluting, and deadly the BQE is to all the communities that live alongside it, so I'm going to try to cut to the chase. Over the last 18 months, The city has presented a series of ideas for what to do with the BQE. These ideas range from street level improvements under the elevated sections, like a little cleanup here, cracking down on some illegal parking there, things which, by the way, they could have and should have done years ago, to investing billions of taxpayer dollars in fortifying or even adding new on and off ramps to the BQE. Can you imagine that? More of this, guys, look around. That's what they're proposing. That would burden all of our communities, hard code 100 more years of car and truck traffic cutting through our densely populated neighborhoods. I want to state unequivocally today that the concepts and designs we've seen so far do not even come close to meeting the expectations and the requirements of our communities here. We must seize this opportunity to rethink mobility for the next century to meet our health, climate, and development goals, not somebody's goals for pleasing the truck lobby. And that means significant and meaningful investment in public and active transit, in sustainable freight delivery, and not in the perpetuation and expansion of highway and car culture. This is our moment to think seriously about sunsetting our 20th century urban highways, as many other cities in the US, in New York, and around the world have already done, instead of doubling down on rebuilding them in place. To do this, the city and the state must agree to come together in a new multi-stakeholder I-278 governing body that has the authority and the vision to manage the necessary planning for a holistic, community-driven transformation of the BQE. We urge New York City and New York State to be the anti-Robert Moses and help us rewrite history now, because our communities deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and the BHA. And I'm Amy Breedlove, leading for the Cobble Hill Association, and Amanda Nichols is the current president. I just want to bring a little background and reality to this coalition, and that is we stand together, which is what government does not want us to do. They like to divide neighborhoods, say that one neighborhood is getting something and another neighborhood isn't, so that we don't trust each other and we fight with each other. But we're not fighting with each other. We all want a better future for our families, for our neighbors, for future generations, and that's why we're here. So Cobble Hill got together with the BHA a few years ago. We started working together. Already government was getting a little shaky about it, because while Atlantic Avenue divides us, there was a lot that was dividing us over the years, and this has brought us together and brings us together with Red Hook and Williamsburg and Dumbo and Vinegar Hill. And so we really feel that what's important here is for the city and the state to come together, and more so the state. Because I'll tell you right now, the city seems to act like they're leading this, New York City DOT, and yet we sit in meetings and they tell us they have no jurisdiction over Atlantic Avenue South. So what's going on? What are you envisioning? Why are you talking to communities? Why are you asking us what we want for our future, and also what we need today? There's so much that the DOT can do today. You heard all of these neighborhoods who are talking about the health and safety issues. That yes, we want something better and bolder for the future, but we need something now. And New York City DOT can do that on our surface streets and on the areas that they control, but they're not doing that. Instead, they're going around talking about the future of which they have no control. So we need the state to come in. We need the state to get in here. We need real active partners, and we need a transformation. We need a short-term plan, we need a mid-term plan, and we need a long-term plan. That's what all of these communities need. For, again, for our children, for us, for our elders, and for future generations. So let's get on them. The other thing I want to point out, how many 53-foot trucks have gone by while we've been standing here? Those are illegal in New York City. There is no enforcement, there is nothing being done. They are on the highway, they're on our local streets, they're off of truck routes. Even if they're on truck routes, they're not supposed to be here. So the city needs to do something, and we are demanding that now, as a unified coalition of impacted neighborhoods and communities. So thank you all for having us with you, and we stand in solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura and Amy. And next, I'd like to bring up Emmett from Assemblymember Marcela Miteni's office. Emmett?
Hey everyone, apologies that the assembly member can't be here. There was a family emergency recently that she has to unfortunately be out for the next 2 days. But I do want to share and highlight some of the stuff that has been happening a lot in the neighborhood. A lot of them has been frequent town halls, workshops, community-led events by Uprose, by RHI, by Transportation Alternatives. A lot has been going on locally here, not for years, but for decades. That has been highlighted by the assembly member, by local council members as well. But I also want to share something that people aren't talking about. Yes, we have to tear down and transform the highway, but we also have to transformatively, but also fundamentally invest in public transportation to make sure that we're able to find alternatives that actually work for working class people. One of the things that we're trying to do in the state is we're trying to expand this free bus pilot program to include 3 additional lanes in Brooklyn. We realized that in the past, in the pilot programs, people have been using the buses much more frequently than they have in the past. If we can make these accessible to all working class people, we know that there will be a just transition from the BQE into public transportation as well. I just want to highlight and thank to the council members, Lincoln Ressler, Alexa Aviles, assembly members, Joanne Simon, Senator Grenardis, as well as a rep from Congressmember Dan Golden for being here. But also I want to thank a lot to the local organizations that are here who've been fighting for decades. As a person who has lived right across the street from the BQE, I know how hard it is to keep your windows closed at night, seeing the red smog on your windows. In our district, we have a couple of schools, especially new schools that were recently built right across the corner from the BQE. And it's such a shame to see all their windows closed during all times because it's hard to tell kids that it's unsafe to go outside when they have a playground that they can't use often. So we need to do something about this BQE, and the assembly member stands with everyone here today. Thank you.
All right, we're almost there. We're almost there. Yeah, just thank you so much, Emmett. And just want to remind folks, think about how many, not only cars that have passed by, but the amount of trucks that have passed by as well, the amount of pollution that we've seen and experienced. So we really need a just way, not the highway. We really need to center community solutions and really need to come up with a corridor-wide plan that centers environmental justice. Before we go to our last speaker, I want to give a couple shout-outs to other coalition members who are here, who were here, or couldn't make it. 350 Brooklyn, Brooklyn Heights Association, Cobble Hill Association, Riders Alliance, Tri-State Transportation Campaign, North Brooklyn Neighbors. I know I'm missing a few, sorry, but I'm also trying to wrap this up. And then, shout out to a lot of our state elected officials who weren't able to make it for one reason or another, but a lot of them are also fighting for the inclusion of the BQ Green Plan in our state budgets. And that includes, as you heard, Assemblymember Medina, also Assemblymember Emily Gallagher, Senator Grenardis, Senator Julia Salazar, and also shout out to Councilmember Shahana as well. And to close us out, I want to bring up someone who's really been doing a lot of the groundwork in coordinating and getting all these community organizations in this coalition. Maria, please.
Oh my God, what a beautiful day to be here together. What a beautiful day. My heart is so moved. I'm so pumped up that this is the power of unity, people. This really is the power of unity. I'll do a quick introduction. I'm Maria Fernanda Pulido. Buenas tardes. I'm organizing particularly for this BQE campaign, and I'm based out of El Puente in Los Sures. And yeah, we've been working together for the past months just to come here together and just raise our voices and tell these agencies and the governor and the mayor what we want. So before we close out, I just want to leave us with some seeds of excitement about what's coming up for our coalition. Where are we going? And this is what it is. We're growing in unity, and you saw it today. There's so many organizations and community members from different parts of Brooklyn. Now we got Queens, on the move with us, and we're gonna keep growing. We're gonna keep growing our coalition. Tell your neighbors, everybody living around the BQE corridor and that is impacted by this highway. We need to come together. So spread the word, and let's come together to do this. And what we're doing here, just kind of to summarize a lot of the stuff that has been said here today, is that we really want to demand a corridor-wide comprehensive transformation of the BQE that is centered on justice, and that it's a response to these times where our cities can no longer be the spaces for pollution and disease. They have to be spaces where we're actually creating corridors for our communities to connect, and that are spaces for health. I also want to remind everybody that this is New York City, but that we are part of a movement that's growing across the nation. Communities are organizing against highways and against the infrastructure that harms us, and we're just part of that. You know, we're not alone in this. This is why we have to keep sharing this message with everybody, and we're here to stay. We're here to raise our voices, and we're here to continue growing in unity to demand the state DOT, the New York City DOT, the governor, and the mayor to invest in this BQE corridor-wide transformation. That, just to lay out some specific demands that we have, explore zero emissions, modes of freight distribution, and reduce the truck usage and vehicles miles traveled. Number 2, a transformation that invests in public transportation, like Ahmed was saying, pedestrian and cyclist safety, and mobility for all. A transformation that meaningfully improves public health outcomes. And more than anything, that it incorporates community-developed climate adaptation plans. That last part of community-led is so important, everybody. It's so important. Our communities need to actually lead the process, not just be sought out for advice. So yeah, here we are, guys. Here we are. We're going to hold these agencies accountable, and we're here to inspire and empower each other and everybody around the corridor. Please just stay with this energy with you. We can't imagine another way. We don't have to live with this highway for another 100 years. We really don't. We don't have to put up with harmful infrastructure. We really don't. And I know it's hard sometimes when we've lived around this infrastructure for years, but if we can change that, reimagine that, inspire others to do this, empower others to really call out politicians and the decision makers in making this possible, we're gonna do it. So keep up the energy. Thank you, everybody who showed up today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep this in your heart. Keep this in your life, so you keep moving and sharing the word. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for those closing remarks, Maria. And as Quincy said, this is just the beginning. Also, we went overtime by a lot, but we're happy to take any questions from any reporters if there are any. You want to take it? Yeah, I mean, right now, these same communities that you've just mentioned are experiencing that, and they have been experiencing that for decades. And what we want to make sure is that whatever we're doing to one part of the corridor, that we're really, thinking about the entire corridor. Thinking about BQE South, BQE North, and the Queens portion of the highway. If no other questions, thank you all so much.
Thank you.